Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, one of the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Games ever made and the first home console Yu-Gi-Oh! Game to come stateside. Its North American release in March of 2002 puts it almost 2 years older than the original Japanese release in late 1999. What makes this year significant is that 1999 is also the year that the proper physical card game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out. Most of the development of this game occurred prior to having its rules finalized, which means that Forbidden Memories plays nothing like the physical card game, not necessarily because it wanted to, but because it had to. It's a good thing that I don't come to Yu-Gi-Oh! Games looking for a simulation of the physical TCG. Some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Games are the ones that push the rules the farthest, but if you're going into Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories expecting anything resembling the core game, then turn away now, close out of this video, and go watch one of my other ones. Still with me? Great. I'm glad you have an open mind and are willing to try something new. So, let's take a look at the big picture before we dive into the specifics. The game alternates between the Yu-Gi-Oh! Protagonist Yugi and the spirit of his ancient Egyptian ancestor, Atem. The meat of the game focuses on Atem and his storyline, dealing with a coup in his home country and trying to take back the family's throne from the would-be usurper. Atem and Yugi aren't the only two characters with parallels between the ancient and modern worlds. Almost every character Atem encounters is a stand-in for one of Yugi's modern friends. Clearly the same character, just donned an ancient Egyptian garb. Not only was this a cost-saving measure so the developers can reuse assets, but also as a cute bit of fan service for those die-hard Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans who love seeing the spirit of those familial conflicts that were predestined to occur over generations and generations that seem to be all the rage within shonen anime. You'll be given a map screen where you can go to different locations and engage in a simple visual novel that, at some points at least, gives you a lot more freedom than you probably would expect. I did the first mission twice with different answers just to see, and my opening half hour of the game was radically different each time, which is far more choice than I was expecting to have. It won't be long until you start getting wrapped up into battles against other characters, which are, of course, done through playing a children's card game. And sadly, this is really where the game fell apart for me. Disclaimer: I love video games and normally find a lot of positive things to say about very flawed ones. That is not the case with Forbidden Memories, where almost every aspect of this game's design is something that I found revolting in the worst way possible. The rest of this review is really going to be more of a rant about my time spent with the game and everything I disliked about it. You've been warned. So, here's what's the same. You build a deck full of cards, most of which are monsters. Each monster has an attack and a defense value. Monsters can be played in attack or defense positions, which then determines which of those stats is obeyed during combat. Attack enemy monsters or your enemy directly to get them down to 0 life points and win the game. Beyond that, everything is wildly different, specifically a mechanic known in the game as fusion. You can play a monster directly from your hand into the field, but more often than not, that is a terrible play. You can attempt to fuse any cards in your hand, as many as 5 at a time, to create a brand new monster. Conceptually, this is a really cool idea, but in practice, this will try your patience far more than it stimulates or brings out any strategy inside of you. Assuming that you pick an incorrect set of cards that cannot properly fuse, all but the final card you attempted will be completely discarded, causing you to lose all of those resources for not knowing the fusion. This makes it pretty punishing to try to learn the game and its fusions because you will constantly be throwing away what could have been a card in your strategy because you didn't have every formula memorized. With over 700 cards in the game, no mere mortal can remember every possible combination, so you will definitely be relying on a comfortable core of formulas your brain can possibly fit. If I could change one thing about the fusion system, it would be to introduce a hint button that would maybe display a potential fusion in my hand. Not showing you which 2 cards to fuse, mind you, but just showing a card. If this theoretical hint, for example, was to give me a big dragon of some sort, I would know to try to fuse one of the dragons in my hand with another card that felt similar to the end result. That way, successful or not, I feel like I was playing a game and given an honest shot, and not just being punished for not having a graph memorized. The way the system exists in the game now gives you 3 different options. Just trial and error until you know tons of different combos, look up a guide online, or try to see what cards the opposing AI is fusing and try to copy their strategy. Option 3 isn't super fun, and even if you wanted to, by the 4th or 5th duel it's not really an option because your opponent just starts getting cards that are way stronger than anything you have. If you do end up looking up a guide online, you will see a lot of the same tactics to beat the game, 3 of which I found were the most prominent. Cheese the game by trading cards with yourself on a duplicate memory card, grind the free play mode indefinitely until it drops the random cards you need, or make Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon is notorious for being one of the only really good fusions you can reliably make with your early set of cards. So strong is this individual card, and so easy is he to make, that he becomes the dominant strategy with which you will beat most of the game. Find a dragon, fuse it with an element, then fuse that dragon with a thunder card. It's a mantra you will want to carry close to your heart should you ever play this game, because it's seriously the only way to get through most of it without grinding. I just kept brute forcing games until I eventually got the perfect opening hand and just steamrolled my opponent. And as slimy as I felt, I oftentimes felt like it was my only option with how crazy the difficulty spikes were every couple of duels. They will just start dropping the craziest cards you have no way to beat unless you have a massive fusion, like Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. Things get even more contrived when you introduce the game's type matchups, conceptualized through multiple celestial bodies. When you play a card, you will be given one of 2 options in terms of which star or planet to identify it with, maybe like Mars or Neptune or something like that. Which should you pick? I don't know. There's this whole hierarchy split up into 2 different graphs that shows which is good against what, and I mean, look at this, how is anyone supposed to know any of this? Pokemon's typings are kind of a clustery mess at this point too, but at least in concept, you can somewhat understand most of them. Water puts out fires, fires burn down trees, and so on. But here it's just guess randomly or have a guide in front of you. There's an indicator before you enter combat that shows whether or not you have an advantage, but by the time you get to combat, it's too late. Something like that while the card is in your hand is really what we needed here. An improvement I would have made is ironed out all of those advantages into a single graph instead of this 2-part thing we got going on. Then, make it so that the order of which type beats what is based on the order that that planet appears in our solar system. Mercury beats Venus, Venus beats Earth, Earth beats Mars, etc. That way, kids playing this game for the first time will pay attention in science class and take some of that knowledge back to their PlayStation. And us adults who have seen the Drake and Josh episode where they sing the order will have the chart down perfectly. And finally, I wanted to talk about grinding cards in free play mode because this is something that took up many hours of my playthrough and, in itself, was a frustrating experience. You will get a near random card depending on which opponent you challenge in free play and how strong your rating was. The best rating is achieved by beating your opponent down as fast as possible, basically incentivizing a single style of play, a super rush based deck. Being pigeonholed into a specific style of play stifles half the fun I get out of building my own decks in card games. But let's be real, the fact that the cards in this game don't even have effects of any kind means that there weren't really any other options in the first place. People online report playing Free Duel literally hundreds of times to get the cards they need to take on late game challenges, and I certainly don't have any intention of doing that. This game doesn't deserve that kind of time, and this problem could have just as easily been rectified by having the in-game card shop be an actual shop and not just a place where you save the game. If you've ever been interested in seeing where the console history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Card games began, do your best to lose that interest. There are Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that are far more worth your time, which I hope to cover in the future, but this isn't one of them. The problem isn't that it tried something different and deviated from the regular formula, it's just that it did so poorly. If you have fond childhood memories of playing this game as a kid, please, I forbid you, don't try reliving those memories.